The Old Testament. The Pentateuch. I know that's the right word because I looked it up. The Bible is a book of many books, 66 in fact, from Genesis through Revelation. These books are grouped by type or subject. The first group is called the Pentateuch, which comes from the word penta, meaning 5. So then the Pentateuch is the first 5 books of the Old Testament. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. You can tell me if I've pronounced that wrong. So I will either read through one at a time, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, or depending on how the flow is going, I'll just read straight through. I mean, I've got a timer on my phone here so I can see how long it'll be. But these 5 books are sometimes called the books of Moses, after their author. Moses is also the most famous person in the Pentateuch. You've probably heard the story about him when he was an infant, also played by Charlton Heston. His mother hid him in a basket on the river because the king of Egypt had ordered that all Hebrew babies should be killed. That exists in Exodus 1:22 to 2:4. Moses' parents and all the Hebrews were slaves of the Egyptians, and the king was concerned that the Hebrew slaves were becoming greater in number than his own people. That's 1:9 to 11. Moses was discovered by an Egyptian princess who took him home to live with her. Moses grew up among the rulers of Egypt and learned their way of life. One day, God appeared to Moses in a burning bush and gave him a special assignment. Moses must convince the king of Egypt to set the Hebrew slaves free. Then, Moses would lead the people to their new home known as the Promised Land. The book of Exodus tells how Moses finally got the Hebrew people released from slavery. The people traveled under Moses' leadership into the desert, where God revealed to Moses the 10 Commandments and other laws. You can read about many of God's laws in the book of Leviticus. When the people approached the Promised Land, God wanted them to go immediately and claim the land, but they refused. They were afraid of a nation of people known as the Canaanites, who were already settled in the land. God was displeased with this disobedience of his people, so he ordered them to travel in the desert for 40 more years. These events are described in the book of Numbers. Finally, the Hebrew people were ready to settle the land. Since Moses could not enter the Promised Land himself, he delivered a series of farewell speeches to the people. These talks revealed what God expected of his people in their new home. These speeches appear in the book of Deuteronomy. Moses himself does not appear in Genesis, of course, since it tells of events before his time, but he is regarded as the author of that book as well. It describes the creation of the world, the sin of Adam and Eve, in the Garden of Eden, the story of Noah and the flood, and the lives of several other famous people in the Old Testament: Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. They all lived long before the time of Moses, but their lives were well known to the Hebrew people. The Pentateuch serves as a good introduction to the Bible. In Genesis, God made a covenant or agreement with Abraham. See Genesis 12:1-3. He promised to bless Abraham and his descendants if they would serve God and tell other people about him. The rest of the Bible shows how God's people struggled to keep this agreement and how God dealt with them throughout their history. So the first book of Moses is called Genesis.